Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Holistic Human Optimization Show. I am your host, as always, Ronnie Landis. And we've taken a little time away from the show, I've noticed. Obviously, I would notice because I'm the one hosting the show, but life has been pretty interesting these last couple months. It's been pretty full on. And although I've updated a lot of the episodes from before, I haven't recorded an episode in maybe 2 months, which is strange because the last 2.5 years, I've been full force with this thing. We're almost 170 recorded interviews, not to mention all the individual episodes I've done. And it's been full on. So this last couple months away from it has definitely given me a lot of reflection. And I wasn't sure how I wanted to proceed with this. You know, after you've done something for so long and it started out as a hobby, it started out something as like, I have so many contacts, so why not put them together? Then it took on a life of its own and became a side obsession, and we built a huge following, and I think we have like almost like 250,000 downloads, and just pretty cool, pretty amazing. And I was trying to think to myself, like, do I want to like build a serious podcast at this point, or what do I want to do? I don't know at this point, but what I do know is that I get feedback from people so many people say that this is their favorite podcast just because of the diversity. I'm personally used to being on both sides of these conversations, so I think there's a unique ability to go really deep with people and have a conversation rather than just a static interview. And I think that's one of the reasons people really are drawn to this particular podcast. And so, yeah, I'm excited to be back with all of you, and all of you that are viewing this right now on Facebook Live. Welcome back. And let's jump into this episode. So I have one of my closest friends, Miss Noa Lakshmi. We did an episode around 100 episodes ago, maybe more, and we talked all about astrology and a lot of amazing things on that level. And Noa is my personal astrologer. She's the person I go to when things are hitting the fan and I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. I can't get a straight answer on YouTube. Everyone's going all over the place and Mercury's doing this. I don't even understand what's going on. I need you to help me understand. And the cool thing about what Noa does in her consultation work is that she does soul astrology reading. So she has an ability to really pierce into the soul, not just to tell you what's going on in your chart and the conceptual, kind of the mental side of it, but she helps bridge the mind and the soul. So you understand that there is a purpose and there is a process and a cycle that your soul is going through in your human incarnation. And it starts to make sense. So you're not just like up the creek without a paddle, or however the saying goes, right? You're actually, there is a plan and a purpose for the madness that you may be going through, and it will all come together. And so I really appreciate Noa for that. And so Noa, you had reached out to me not that long ago, and you said, hey, like, it's time for us to have another conversation and we need to talk about money. And at the time I was like, yeah, we probably do need to talk about that. And then we circle back around, and the other day I just got this hit. I was like, wait a minute, I need to contact Noa. Like, it's time to get this thing going. And so here we are. We just had a really great banter about this before we hopped on here. And I don't want to take too much time because this is a very deep subject. I want to contextualize it. I actually want to have you contextualize it. So what we're going to talk about today is multiple dimensions of financial health. Let's say that, like prosperity consciousness, and why it is absolutely essential for each one of us to develop abundance financially, not just like, you know, abundance as a nice idea, like, oh, I'm so abundant, but no, like the actual evidence of it in your bank account. As you know, a response to the work you do or the service you give or whatever it is your deal is. But ultimately the point is that each one of us, spiritually speaking, must become wealthy and prosperous in order to be fully, I don't want to say fully realized, but just to have the full human experience. Maybe that's where we're going with this. So with that said, what an interesting topic. Noa, why is this so important to you?
I was writing notes as you were talking too, like for me not to forget certain things. So Thank you, Ronnie. I'm so stoked to be here and all in perfect timing. April 1st. Haha, it's a joke. So you touched on something really crucial. Why I am so passionate about this. It's that self-realization. What I call also is self-actualization. And in the world that we live in right now, in this material world, like, I don't care how spiritual you are. I'm a very spiritually oriented individual. So are you. We live in a material world. We do. That's the reality that we are in right now. And as a spiritual being, if you want to truly actualize yourself on all levels, physically, mentally, and spiritually, money is part of the equation. None of us can escape that. So just like you and I were talking before getting on the actual recording, unless you want to live in a cave and eat wild mangoes and Kauai, then you've got to have money. Now, the difference and what I am passionate about is it's not just about how much money you have in your bank account. There are plenty of people out there that are extremely prosperous financially, lots of money in the bank account, but they are far from being self-actualized and far from being spiritually rich, spiritually prosperous. So we are looking at creating a new generation that is both spiritually rich and financially rich. And when you bring those two together, that's where true and profound self-actualization can occur, where the actualization occurs on the spiritual level and on the material level. So that's what I'm driven by. It's the understanding that money basically gives us the tools and the resources to grow as on an individual level, and to expand and to embody the true potential of who we are. And that takes money. Even just sitting right now, you needed money to buy this computer. You want to take certain trainings, you want to take certain classes, you want to travel to places, even the work that you do with clients. For you to become a better coach, for you to become a better healer, for you to become a better teacher, a better artist, a better musician, whatever it is that is yours to do, whatever it is that is your path of self-actualization, that requires money. I don't care who you are.
100%. 100%. That's what, that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize is that entrepreneurs, coaches, service providers, we're all reinvesting back into ourselves. It's not as though we're just storing money away in some savings account. Most of the time, entrepreneurs, it's a messy process and it's chaotic at times because, we're trying to handle and steward and learn how to, and to hold this energy that we call money. And it's an interesting process in of itself. And I think we'll probably go into that as we get down to the archetypal side of things. So love everything that you're sharing. And let's just talk about, you gave me a number of bullet points that you wanted to go through. So why don't we go through those almost in a little bit of a orderly way and start with number one, which is, you say it's your birthright to be prosperous from sharing your innate gifts. Your passions are indeed your prosperity. I love that. I completely agree with that. Let's expand on that.
For sure. And it's a continuation of what I start saying already, the difference between having money, making money, and having a wealthy bank account. But are you actually fulfilled? Are you actually aligned with your soul? So it's creating that generation of fulfilled and prosperous individuals. And like I said, it's your birthright. Of course, you can take classes, you can expand your box of tools, and all of that requires money, and it's a beautiful process. However, it is your birthright to be prosperous from just being you. So whatever it is that you are passionate about, whatever it is that comes naturally to you, it's your path to prosperity. And we were not taught that. We were not taught that, hey, whatever it is that is your gift, whatever it is that you feel called to do and to share, that's actually your doorway to prosperity. But for most people, that's not the mindset. That's not the dominant mindset. And so many people are trapped in a place of, okay, I'm making a lot of money, but I'm spiritually depleted or not fulfilled or not happy. And then we've got, the other side of the fence of, yes, I'm stoked. I'm doing the healing work, or I'm sharing my music. I'm coaching people, whatever your gig is, but there's no money. So closing that gap is absolutely crucial for people to be truly fulfilled. And this is the key word, empowered. Absolutely empowered. Now, like you said, right, it's a messy process being an entrepreneur, and whatever it is that you choose to do. It's one thing to make money by having a job, and it's a completely different ballgame to actually have that financial abundance coming into your life through being you and actually sharing your gifts. And then we can go deeper into the conversation that that's all based on self-worth. And if your self-worth is not there, then it will be very difficult to actually feel confident enough to know that your gifts are valuable, and then to open the gates of receptivity to actually receive compensation from your gifts and your passions and what is your natural flow of expression.
I love that. And the question that was coming up in my mind that I think a lot of people would be thinking is that, how do we apply that? And, you mentioned something about self-worth, which is obviously in our world, we know that is the really the root of everything. Even health in general, there's a self-worth component, especially an emotional component with all forms of disease. It's actually been mapped out organ to organ, meridian to meridian. In certain organs and glands house certain emotional connotations. So certain diseases have a direct association with specific emotions, and gender to gender even. It's actually gotten very specific. So then you think about self-worth and self-deprivation, or the lack of self-esteem, the lack of self-respect. The word that comes up for me is congruence. I was having this conversation with a mutual friend of ours, and we were talking about working together, and she has everything in her life is kind of dialed in, but there's this one persistent thing with weight and health, and I drew the correlation between that and the rest of her life involving her income, the ceilings, the invisible glass ceilings in every area of her life that she was mentioning. And I realized it had an embodiment issue, and it wasn't anything wrong with her. It was just like there was a bottleneck. And I was just saying, like, the thing that I think is going to skyrocket everything at the same time is congruence. Because it's not that your body, in this example, it's not that your body is inherently wrong. It's how you feel about it. And you know that something is off. Therefore, you can't trick yourself out of it. You can't just say, oh, I love my body just the way it is. That's not going to work, because you fundamentally know that something's out of order. So you don't feel totally congruent. Therefore, that's creating a bottleneck with your income and with your relationships and all these other areas. And that's kind of what comes up for me. Before we go into point number 2, I think it is a beautiful bridge. But I want to just get your take on that. Everything I just said, and especially this congruence piece, because I feel like the bottleneck for people to translate the idea of abundance to practical abundance, people don't feel worthy. Therefore, how could they really feel congruent?
Wow, Ronnie, this is brilliant. So brilliant. And I agree with you 100%. Congruency it's a keyword, and it's for many people, and I know myself, right? It's a moment of radical honesty that I had to have with myself around, well, what is my financial reality reflecting to me? Hello, Noah, wake up call. Where aren't you congruent in your life? And it's not about feeling bad about oneself. It's not about pointing fingers, blaming oneself for other things. It's just, all right, then let me do something about it, which again requires a level of self-worth. Because if I deem myself worthy, right, then of course I want the best health. Of course I want to be wealthy. Of course I want to create the life that I desire. Of course I value my gifts and I want to share it because I see the value that they bring to the world and to the people that cross my path. So all of that comes down to self-worth. And that's the work that I do. I go to that place and like, let's see, where aren't you valuing yourself? And therefore you're not congruent. So what you said around congruency is so true, Ronnie, because it's one thing to meditate about abundance and all that beautiful stuff, but we actually need to take the action steps, right? And I know you know that it's the action steps, especially when you build your own business, when you don't have a paycheck that is coming in every month. You are your business. Whatever your field of expertise is, you need to take the action steps that will allow that wealth, that prosperity to come in. So the action steps also, what is the fuel? The fuel is self-worth. I know that I am worthy of A, B, C, and D, then the action steps come naturally. It's not always easy. I'm not saying it's easy, because a lot of the times we've got to stretch ourselves and do the things that we haven't done before and be the things that we haven't been before. So the action steps are not always easy, but there's no like sticky resistance. It's like, okay, I know these are the steps that I can take in order to change my financial reality. Awesome. I'm doing it. Why? Because I see my value. I know that I'm worthy of this life. And so there's more congruency between the thoughts, the feelings, how I feel about myself, and the actions that I take to close the gap between the reality of now and the reality that I know is my birthright to live and experience.
It's so perfectly stated. And, it's the same thing with healthy habits. It's
Totally.
like the more acidic your blood is, the more you're going to crave acidic things, the more you're going to crave sugar, the more you're going to crave certain types of fats or things that we would say are, processed food, whatever. But the more alkaline you are, the more you're going to crave alkaline forming foods. It's just, so it's not state dependent as in just your mental state. It's your entire state, your state of being and everything involved. And, it really does come down to self-worth, especially if you are in that acidic state, even just like an acidic situation, if you will, a negative situation. It takes a lot of valuing yourself to pull yourself out of that, to get back into equanimity within yourself. To make those healthy choices, you have to value yourself, and you have to have self-esteem to say, no, I deserve to eat organic. I deserve to pay the extra $1 for the organic avocado or something. And every time someone makes that choice, they're investing in themselves and they're creating more self-respect. And it's no different, and it translates to every other area of our life. So it's like in this particular dimension, is so powerful because as you mentioned before we recorded, it's such a taboo, right? It's such a taboo, and it's so easy to overlook this and to just, whatever, to just penny pinch and stuff. But, I want to take what you just shared and move on to the second point, which is dismantling patterns and paradigms of struggle and suffering and installing new codes of prosperity and freedom. I love this.
Yeah, well, it goes hand in hand with what we talked about before we start recording, and it's one of the points. The starving artist, the broke healer, the burned out entrepreneur, or the broke entrepreneur, like all those stories around. And like you said, Ronnie, the badge of honor that people hold around, oh my God, I'm so busy, and I'm burned out, and I'm working so hard. And it's almost like in our society, we've been trained to be proud of that. And if you do make a lot of money, then it's taboo. It's like, we don't talk about it. You're not allowed to brag about how wealthy you are or how successful financially you are, but it's okay to talk about how broke you are. and how burnt out you are. That's like, oh yeah, let's open that conversation, even amongst friends. Like how many conversations we actually have around, oh my God, let's celebrate our abundance. Let's celebrate our prosperity. Let's celebrate our financial success and other successes, rather than let's have a conversation about how difficult it is and how hard it is. And the bottom line is, we are, our generation, I had this conversation just a few weeks ago in another interview, our generation, what we are doing is no joke in terms of we are changing our DNA. We are literally downloading new codes of prosperity and freedom and sovereignty and fulfillment, all those things that our parents, even our parents, not even that far from now, our parents, definitely our grandparents and our ancestors, did not have that privilege to live a life of freedom and prosperity in the way that we now have the privilege to experience. And it's a huge privilege that we have. And that ties into why it is your spiritual duty to become wealthy. Because if you are a light worker, if you consider yourself to be a light worker, and it doesn't matter what your occupation is, you can be a dentist and be a light worker. Doesn't matter. But if you have this burning passion, this burning knowing in your heart that you are a change agent, then it is your spiritual duty to become wealthy. So you have the resources to not only meditate on this beautiful world that we can create together, but actually have the resources to move yourself on a personal level, to move yourself forward, and on a collective and global level to move humanity and this planet to a better place. And so all those stories and all those old paradigms of the struggle and the suffering, and you have to work hard and you've got to compromise your happiness if you want to make money. I mean, that's a huge one that we must step out of and know that fulfillment and prosperity go together in this. It is every single individual's birthright, period. And those are new codes that we are starting to install in our system and operate based on these new codes.
It's so powerful. It's so powerful, and it brings up a lot of interesting things. So if you consider the fact that what you're saying is likely very, very true, then that would mean that there's a software upgrade program going on. So imagine like your human neurological system, your brain, your nervous system is like the operating system, right? Okay, then you have software, and you can change the operating system like through neurogenesis and different brain research. Your brain actually physically can reform itself, not to a huge degree, but the actual like the neuronal structure and everything, like there's a plasticity to it, right? So what you eat, what you take in, the health of your brain, what you think and emote, all that has an effect on the physical structure, right? So that's the hardware. And myelination and all that. But then you have the software, which is the information. It's one thing to have the hardware, but it's not really, doesn't really matter if you don't have the software, which is the information in the hardware, the operating system. So a lot of my work is about upgrading the operating system, right? Making it run faster, cutting down the lag time, optimizing, that kind of thing. But then it's also like, well, what's the information going on in there? And I think one of the things, this brings up a lot of interesting points. Like one of the things that we do know now is that a lot of the trauma that people are carrying is ancestral trauma. It's ancient trauma. Some people even say it's stored in the right hemisphere of the brain, which is a whole interesting topic in of itself. But nonetheless, there's a lot of ancient trauma that's stored in our system, and that's information. Or it's familiar, it's lineage, or just stuff that we've been through, traumatic experiences that got imprinted into us, right? Whatever it is, all that has to be purged, or it has to be resolved or dealt with of some sort, right? Because if the new archetype or the new information is trying to come through, you can't have competing and conflicting informations in the same space. Like it's actually probably gonna frazzle your nervous system. And you're gonna, so what does your body have to do? It has to compartmentalize and has to scatter the mind in order to deal with the trauma or to not deal with the trauma. It has to scatter the mind, or it has to compartmentalize the information and store it somewhere in the physical body until someone can deal with it. So I guess the point I'm trying to make right now is that in connecting everything that you're saying is that if we're going through an evolutionary upgrade process, it stands to reason that in order to embody the upgrade, we have to deprogram the programs that are already in the operating system before we can fully live the upgraded program.
Absolutely. I love how you broke it down to the hardware and the software, because that's the language that I speak as well. And I see myself, the work that I do is so much about upgrading, like let's upgrade your system. And I love giving the example of a computer, right? When you've got the window that pops up and says, are you ready to install the upgrades? And you've got yes, no, or remind me later. So it's right now, and we've been experiencing that just in the last few years, massive upgrades. And every few months or so,
remind me later, remind me later, remind me later. That's what most people are doing, right?
Exactly. So every few months or so, we get the pop-up. Are you ready to install the upgrades? And right now, because it keeps it becomes amplified more and more and more as we go, because things are just speeding up. Our evolution is speeding up. What used to take 2 years now takes 2 months, sometimes even 2 weeks, and sometimes even 2 days. So the amount of information, like you said, that is coming into our system, and when I say information, is a lot of it is also unseen information, all this decoding that is happening right now. There's a lot of universal forces, a lot of cosmic forces that are at play, that are helping the human species to evolve. And part of it, and this is for the next 7 years, and I'm bringing some astrological information into it without really talking about the astrology, but the next 7 years has a lot to do with embodying our higher self, with bringing heaven to earth, literally, which begins with bringing heaven or heavenly reality into your own physical reality as an individual. So there's a lot to say about what you're talking about, and both of us share this work of the body. Like, you've got to create heaven on earth in your body with the food that you eat, with the water that you drink, with the thoughts that you have, with the emotions that you feel, and how financially empowered you are and how fulfilled you are, and creating that heavenly reality in your personal life so we can together experience heaven on earth. That reality already exists. Can we align ourselves with that timeline, though? So it's all about embodiment. It's all about embodying the highest, most brilliant potential that is already living inside of you. And becoming wealthy, having the money to do that is absolutely essential. Because also another piece, Ronnie, that I want to touch on is being stuck in the survival mode, right? And when you are a broke artist or a broke healer or whatever it is, we're struggling, you are stuck in the first chakra. Survival, not feeling safe. Who the F has the resources, the internal resources to actually create whatever it is when you are stuck in survival mode? So much of the energy goes there. And you were speaking about it earlier, saying that it becomes a disease in the body. There's no energy flow when you're just stuck there in the root of trying to survive and get by. I know that reality. It fucking sucks.
That's very felt by most people, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. And I want to touch on this word timelines that you brought up, because this is a very interesting thing when you start studying this stuff and you start to look at different perspectives of your own evolution, of the chronological life cycle. We think it's linear. It's just 1 to 100 or 1 to 73 or whatever the proposed life cycle is. And it's just kind of one. It's incremental, and it's one to the end, right? But what's more interesting to me is the idea of multiple timeline probabilities. And so you have multiple possibilities and probabilities based on the actions that you take create the probability, but it's all a possibility until you actually choose something. Most people are they're in an attention deficit disorder. So there's indecision, and they're not able to actually make a decision because we have more options than we've ever had before. And our nervous system isn't actually evolved, I guess, to even be trying to decide between a million different things and all the different shiny objects and the temporary gratification versus your own evolutionary trajectory. And so it's like we kind of are weighing out all these different things, and we can get into that place of indecision, not committing ourselves to a single path. And I guess the point I want to make with that, or open up anyways, is like when you look at your life as a series of timelines, let's say you have a goal or something, or you're like, okay, I want to be financially free. Let's use that example. Let's say financially free is like something between like $100,000 to $150,000 a year of guaranteed income. For most people, that would be the most amazing thing ever. So let's say that, right? Okay, well then you have to kind of reverse engineer it, right? If that timeline exists, then it's not like we just wait around for it or wait for everything to be perfect, but we still do the same thing we're doing that's getting us what we're getting, because what we're doing is putting us on a particular timeline that may not align to the timeline that we're taught that you may prefer. So I guess what I want to talk to you about is like this idea of timelines and aligning ahead of time to a timeline that may already exist in the future, trying to meet us in the present moment.
You're opening up so many portals here with this conversation. Here's my take on it. I believe that if you have a desire, and let's stick to the financial freedom. And I also want to clarify that it's not about the amount, because for some people, $100K a year is a drop in the bucket. For some, it's like unheard of, right? So it's really not about whoever is listening. It's not about the amount. Whatever is wealth to you, financially speaking, whatever is going to give you the prosperous reality that you were born to experience and live. All right. So let's stick to the financial freedom. And I know that speaks to me. If you have a desire in your heart, that desire was placed there by a force I call God, call it universe, source, whatever. It was placed there for a reason, because whatever it is that you desire, whatever it is that you envision, you also were given the capabilities to manifest that, to create that. All right. So we can look at it as a future reality, as a future timeline. However, it's actually a reality that is existing right here, right now, because you have the capacity and the ability to envision that, to dream of that. And it's more than just a dream. I mean, Einstein said, your imagination as a human being is your greatest tool. In different words, I'm sorry, Einstein, that I just distorted it completely, but you get the idea, right? So your imagination is, so to speak, the vehicle to get you into that timeline that we, with our linear brains, were taught to look at it as a linear thing. So I'm here now, and then there's this thing 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and blah, blah, blah. But it's actually, there's no such thing. Everything is existing right now, and it's through meditation. That's why meditation is so crucial. That's why through meditation, we can get a taste and a feel of what is this field of infinite possibilities, you can say, or infinite time, where it's not so linear. And the more we meditate, the more we quiet that that chatter mind, the linear mind, the more we can operate and embody, like we said, it's all about embodiment, embody this operating system. that actually in day-to-day life, we are able to maintain that vision of the infinite field, maintain the vision of all those timelines. And already, no matter what the physical reality is already within the mental capacity, live in the reality that you know is possible for you. So I can already live in the reality of financial freedom, even though my bank account doesn't reflect that yet. And that's like the Jedi training. That's when you become the master of your mind.
That's beautifully put. And this does take a level of self-mastery. This is one of the main areas of life that the biggest programming and the biggest control is, right? Because one of the things we didn't talk about this, but I had mentioned to a group coaching group last week, was our relationship to money, to me, feels more physical than it does conceptual. It feels more built into our nervous system. So the fear and the triggering and the paranoia around money for me is always felt physical. It's always triggered something physical. It wasn't like just in my head. Like, sure, like maybe there's a lot of ideas and stuff, but there's something physical being triggered in my body, unlike almost anything else other than a relationship, which then brings up the whole sex and intimacy thing that we talked about, the two creative drivers. So it's interesting, right? Like the level of, so essentially one of the things we're saying is like, yeah, you need to be prosperous for spiritual well-being and to have an infinite amount of options to do what you're here to do. But also what we're saying is this is a direct pathway towards self-mastery. Just think of all the fears and all the self-belief issues that you have to overcome in order to achieve this. It's a very few people in this world that don't have that. Sure, people that are born into affluence, that's not their particular issue. Maybe theirs is relationships or health. Maybe they have a different karma, if you will. But for most people, the money thing is a major bottleneck. It's a major force of control. So I really want to emphasize that thing you said about self-mastery, because to me, at a certain point, the money is like, at a certain point, on the abundance train, I can only imagine when I'm making multiple millions of dollars, it's not going to be that interesting to me, but it's going to be about more. It's going to be about something other than the money. Eventually, hopefully, it becomes so abundant that the numbers, you lose track of the numbers, but there's the journey, there's the activity that you love to do that creates the abundance. It's about something, it's about more of like personal development, I think.
Well, it's personal development, and it's also, again, going back to when you are a light worker and you've got all these beautiful visions for the world, and you are service oriented. And I'm sure most of your audience, Ronnie, just like mine, are service oriented individuals. So it's not just a personal development. And this is an important point for me to emphasize, that your personal development and you being a vehicle of service go hand in hand. So it's not that you are selfish if you care about self-development and investing in yourself. No, it's a necessary, crucial, absolutely fundamental piece that you got to give yourself if you want to be a better vehicle of service. Mm. And same thing goes to money, because the more abundant, the more wealth you have, the more abundant you are with your money, the more you can give. If it's actually donating money or creating things that can help, that can be of service to humanity. I know that that's my vision. Like you said, when money comes in, it's just like water flowing in and out. It really is not about the money. It's about what can I create with that resource. It is absolutely essential. And you've got to take care of yourself. Physically, mentally, spiritually. We talked about it earlier. You've got to keep evolving. You've got to keep growing, and you've got to take care of yourself, because you are the source. You are the vehicle that all that goodness is flowing through. So if the vehicle is not operating at a maximum, optimum level, something is going to be off. It's not congruent. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's a conversation that we just can't escape from.
Okay, so this is what I want to know. Why are people so apprehensive about diving into this conversation? Is it because of fear of disappointment? Sometimes people don't set goals because they don't want to disappoint themselves. Like, why is this it's the most obvious thing in the world. We all use money. So why is this such a taboo?
Right. Well, and Ronnie, God, you talked about, there's so much I could say. That what you feeling physically, right, with money. It's amazing that you brought it up, and I can so relate to that, because again, it goes back to the root chakra. It goes back to safety. And for many of us, and I know you and I have had this conversation about your chart and just in general, and how you fundamentally have felt throughout your life unsafe in the world, correct? I can relate to that same story. Many, many spiritually oriented beings, sensitive, empathic, healers, artists, visionaries are in that category of not feeling safe. And then the financial reality actually reflects that. Just to give you this affirmation of how unsafe I feel and keep being stuck in the root chakra. So I was not addressing your question, but I had to go back to that.
No, that by the way, I just want to just say, like, that's such an important thing. Like, I just remembered there was a recent moment a couple months ago where, like, I hit, I spent all my money, whatever, it just wasn't coming in, and then boom, I hit a plateau, and then I need to create some money quick. And I think there was an element of that. Now that I think about it, I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel like secure or confident, but then something happened that pushed me. And then I got in the game, and all of a sudden I produced something like $15,000 in a matter of a month or a month and a half, and launched a new program. And all of a sudden it was like a new version of me came out of it. So I just want to emphasize that point.
Excellent. Thank you for bringing this up, because it does tie into the question that you asked, how come people are so afraid to talk about it and actually do something. Here's the thing also with the money, it's not about the money and who it is that you need to become to create that reality. And that actually applies to everything, because it's, let's say you want to be with the love of your life, right? It's like, who do you need to become to be in that kind of partnership, right? You want to have certain friendships in your life or relationships. Who do you need to become? So let's focus on the money and the wealth. Who do you need to become to live the financial reality that you truly desire? So it's really not about the money. And talking to people, working with clients, I see it time and time again. People choose to say, I don't know, or I'm confused, or I'm unclear on what I want. Because when you admit to yourself what it is that you want, that also means that you need to take the action steps. And that means that things are going to change. And for your ego, that's a big no-no. And so that's one aspect of why people are actually afraid to set the goals and all that all these things, because that means I've got to stretch and become something that I haven't been before. And on top of that, we've got all the social conditionings around money, right? We talked about it at the beginning before we got on the recording. Sex and money, taboo. We don't talk about it. And both those things are related to our sacral chakra, to our creativity. And it's one of the best ways to keep people stuck, afraid, and disempowered. Shut down sexuality and financial empowerment. And now we can control them.
Isn't that a weird thing in our society? We shut those things down, we make them taboo, and we glamorize them in the shadow side of them at the same time. So you have the shadow side of sexuality through pornography, which is basically just weaponized dopamine reduction or whatever. But then we have all the dopaminergic pleasures of society just there for you. And then, so there's all, whatever all that is. And then the whole money thing, which is like, there's all the religious training and everything around it. So like, we're kind of like, there's the bottleneck, or like, you should only have what your share on the table of life and not anymore. And then it's kind of like, it's kind of proposed to us, people with a lot of money are evil, or they're selfish, or they're destroying the world, which And a lot of in the certain case is true, but it's not because of money.
Exactly. We made money the enemy. Money is neutral, and
And
just
we
like
enslave ourselves to it anyway.
and we enslave ourselves to us. And Ronnie, that's what's so funny is greed and poverty are actually the same. It's sides of the same coin.
Right.
So it's really not about the money. It's what people choose to do with it. And that actually gives all of us, all of you out there, light workers, even more of a motivation to become wealthy. Because the state of the world right now, yes, a lot of it is being controlled by money. So if you look at the scales right now, so much of the wealth is on one side of maybe not such good intentional, heart-centered beings. But what if we start tipping the scales, and now the wealth is in the hands of good intentional, heart-based individuals, spiritually rich people that see the bigger picture. And what would the world is going to look like when we have that in place? So it's really shifting the wealth and the balance. And that's why it's a spiritual duty, like I said at the beginning.
This brings up an interesting thing to me. So I'm part of a company that produces high grade superfoods and leverages a network marketing business model. And I've built a pretty big organization, almost like 1,000 people over the last year and a half, and it's going incredibly well. And one of the things that really drew me to them was the conversation around the company Monsanto. And so we know Monsanto is basically like the archetypal representation of like evil in corporate form. And it was literally raping the planet. And so one of the things with this company, because they're on the front lines of that particular issue and trying to save organic farms and preserve organic farms and farmers. And one of the things that they mention is very similar to this, which is that we need economic empowerment, mothers, fathers, families. We need economic empowerment because without that, we're going to perish to the powers of companies that can get sued for $287 million and not even bat an eye. So it's almost like for companies like this and others, and individuals that are part of companies or part of organizations, we need to become so financially abundant that we can even stand in face of these juggernauts. Speaking from a company perspective, right? But companies are made up of people. So from a company perspective, they said we need to be as big as Coca-Cola and as big as Pepsi-Cola and as big as these corporations, because they don't even bat an eye. They have so much money that they can get sued, pharmaceutical industry, all of it. They can get sued in private courts for billions of dollars and nobody even hears about it. So that's a whole other end of it. But that to me is like the big vision of like what the implications of being of impoverishing ourselves, the implications of not taking every opportunity we can to empower ourselves financially and otherwise.
Yeah, you just touched on the key, and why I'm so driven with this and the work I do with individuals. It comes down to empowerment, because you can be extremely spiritual and spiritually empowered, but if the financial piece is not in place, and this is from my own experience as a person that is pretty rooted in their own self-empowerment, but that financial piece, dude, it's like, whoa. And when that clicks into place, the level of empowerment gets amplified so massively. And it's absolutely needed and necessary at this time. It's crucial. And to keep that vision, just like you said, can we become, us as individuals, can we become empowered in that way, and then come together and gather all of our resources, our spiritual resources and our financial resources, to actually flip some things around here on this planet?
So I think there's so much more that can be talked about here. It's
Yes.
such a rich conversation. As people that may not have thought it was so deep, now you can see like this is actually very deep. And there's two types of people from my vantage point. There's people that have found their calling, have found their dharma, and maybe in the process of monetizing it and creating a structure to receive money. I remember the first day that I got sat down by a mentor of mine 5 years into my health and nutrition mission. I was pretty much speaking around the country on a shoestring budget and writing books and creating content online. But I didn't really understand how to be an entrepreneur. I didn't really know anything about it. I didn't really want to know anything about it. I just thought that I could keep doing what I was doing and somehow I'd be rewarded. And I guess that was true. But then one day I got sat down in Sedona when I was burnt out and had nothing left. And I just landed in Sedona on a book tour and like things just fell apart. I'm just like, I'm in Sedona now. And a mentor of mine happened to be there and one thing led to another. And I had some angels that came into my life that literally taught me how to build online courses. And that's how my online course, the Health Mastery program, was created, which has become a pretty big movement, at least for me and my community. Hundreds of students. But the point of it is that was my first introduction in turning my knowledge in my book into a monetizable platform that actually could serve people in a more powerful way than just reading my book. And it also served me because I can tell you the thing you're talking about, empowerment. I, for the first time, felt truly empowered because I no longer had to worry about paying the rent. The first couple $1,000s I made, and then when I was like, whoa, this works, then I was more motivated to do more and more. And then I remember having $7,000 in my bank account 2 months after doing this, and this had never happened. I felt so rich, Noah. And I didn't even want to spend the money. I was like, cool. I'm not even like, I didn't have to do anything with it. I just bought my groceries, just did my normal thing. I felt so empowered and so independent, where I knew that like I could pay my rent, I could pay for my groceries, I didn't have to ask anybody for help, I could do whatever I wanted to do and needed to do, and it actually freed up so much energy inside of me that I became more creative. What was the common denominator? I mean, it's like you could say like, well, you had all the time. Well, it wasn't about the time, it was about my sense of self-worth went up because I created those results. So there's that side. I wanted to share that story, but the other point I wanted to make was for the person that hasn't found that. That's the point I want to kind of just expand on before we conclude. Is there's going to be people watching this that haven't necessarily found that vehicle, or they don't know how to translate what we're talking about into that, right? So I'd like to just take a moment for those people. What would you say to those people that maybe they're like, well, this sounds good. I know there's the truth in this, but I don't know how to cross that bridge. I don't know how to turn my passion into a profit engine or however you want to phrase that.
Right. That's a great question. And I truly believe, first, if you have clarity on what your passion is, that's a place to start. So, because I know some people don't even have clarity around that. But if you have clarity on what your passion is to not let your mind get in the way of, well, but how can that become profitable? Because that's not yours to know. That's not yours to figure out. Is just to get into the place of knowing this is what my passion is, and start in your meditation, in your free time, in your journaling, paint a picture of the life that you want to experience. It really just starts with the basics. Don't get caught up in the why and don't get caught up in the hows. Paint a picture of the life that you truly desire to experience. Personally, professionally, in your relationships, go into that space of what will be my most fulfilling life. And let the stream of consciousness come through and write it down. And then whatever your passions are, ask yourself, well, how can I start immersing myself in those passions more so than I'm doing right now. Don't think about how profitable it's going to be, because that's how the universe works. You start moving the energy forward, and then doors start to open that you could not foresee from where you are right now. So just ask yourself, how can I immerse myself more in those passions? And start moving in that direction. And in addition, you've got to do the inner work on your self-worth, because I've found that once your self-worth is in a good place, more clarity comes in, because all those action steps come naturally, because you know that you are worthy of a better life. So you don't need to push yourself to find the answers and what are the action steps that I need to take. Ronnie, even to take your example, those people that came into your life to show you how to make the courses, in that moment, you could have said, no, not for me, and walk away, but you didn't, because you had a level of self-worth that said, you know what, I'm ready to step it up financially. I don't want to live like this anymore, right? So there was no resistance. The universe brought to you what you needed, and you said yes. So the inner work has to occur for a person that is still a little bit in that soup of I'm not sure what to do. Just cultivate your self-worth, cultivate how much you value yourself, your relationship with yourself, and the answers, the clarity, the action steps, the opportunities. People will come into your life, and you'll be receptive to see it, and to take the step.
Yeah. And I want to further that point too, because not only did that happen, but it was because of my receptivity and my follow through that made them help me even more. They helped me in ways that they would have been paid a lot of money to do. I mean, you can't even believe they pulled in a guy that flew in to go through a prototype of something he wanted to do, and put me through the prototype. And, you know, it was crazy. It was like a whole operation. And you know what? And I talked to them about, like, why are you pouring so much into me? You're not even charging me or even wanting any percentage or anything. And he's like, well, honestly, it's because you're actually doing the work. Like, we've been trying to help people for a while, and you're like the first person that's actually doing it. And I was like, really? Okay. Well, and that's happened many times in my life. People don't discount the value. And this is why the value of hard work is so important, because, you know, you have more of an advantage in today's economy, in today's world, than you ever did before. Because, you know, everybody used to work hard. Now it's like, if you work hard and you're somewhat intelligent and you have somewhat of an idea of where you're going and you can get along with people, man, you have more of an advantage an advantage like you can't even believe. But then like Noah said, like, all of that is only going to get you so far without the self-worth. Because that took me years after that. I had enough self-worth, but right. There was new levels. I had to stretch myself to keep doing the work. And even now, there's still new levels of self-worth, you know, in every area of my life. So I just want to bring it back to that. It's like, you're so right, Noah, like the self-worth is, and you're never done with it. Just because you think you got it, you're like, all right, I'm good now. But then, you know, it's like another level, another devil, as Anthony Robbins says. It's like, we're constantly being shown our shadow, and the shadow is just like where our insecurities are. It's like, where do we feel less than? And if we can be loving and open with ourselves, but also brutally honest at times, and see that, you know, it's just amazing what opens up in our life, you know, just with a little bit of faith. Yeah.
Yeah. Faith and a lot of commitment, which I like to use the word devotion. It's being devoted to truly fulfilling and self-actualizing. And again, self-actualization is the potential of who you are.
Yeah.
And instead of it being only a potential, is you embodying it. And like I said, the next 7 years is about embodying your higher self, is embodying all those visions, right? You've got your third eye and what you see that is possible for yourself individually and collectively. And this is now being called of us to embody that fully. It's not in the etheric realm of existence. It's in your body. It's right here, right now. How do we do it? And
Right.
the being financially empowered, being fulfilled, following your soul's calling is absolutely essential in the times that we are living in right now.
I want to, as we're concluding, I want to make a note for anyone that's really, really getting activated by this conversation. You can connect with Noa and utilize her astrological genius to actually get so much more clarity on this for yourself and where you're at in your particular cycle, in your timeline, and how to prepare yourself for upcoming events that are unique to you. I think that the astrological perspective that you bring in and helping people actually see like a roadmap of their own kind of soul destiny, at least in the immediate sense, is it's pretty profound. So, can you please share like where people can find you, how they can get in contact with you, your website?
Yeah, absolutely. So here on Facebook is always good. I know we're on Facebook right now, so you can send me a private message. My website is noalakshmi.com, just my name.com, very easy. I've got a YouTube channel as well. I've got a group that I want to invite people to join. It's called Born to Prosper. It's a closed group on Facebook. So it's called Born to Prosper Collective. So you can just search for that and ask to join the group. And I will be launching a group program at the end of May or beginning of June, all about what we are talking about today, doing the inner work to get you ready to create the life that you truly desire to create professionally and personally and truly prosper.
I love that. The life you are, which finances obviously is included, but it's not, it's the life, the holistic life that you're born to live.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Noa, for coming on. Such a good conversation. We've never dove in this deep into the money conversation on this show before. The timing is impeccable. So very grateful to have you on and sharing your wisdom with us all.
Yes. Thank you, Ronnie. Always a pleasure. Thank you.